Yes, and look at that, just like that, like magic. It is Thursday, it is 9, so it's UK Cowboys time. This week we're joined. We do have another member, Paul, join us a little bit later, but right now we've got brand new to it. We've got Craig Cameron, who helps us on the social media side. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, really well, thanks. Yourself?
Bearing up under all the strain of everything, you know.
Yeah,
A busy week in the Cowboys news, which is needless to say. So it's going to be a busy one. You first one, and it is packed this week. So a lot going on. As always, guys, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, give us your comments, your thoughts, tell us what you think. If you agree, disagree, we like it if you disagree. We do like disagreements. So make sure you just get involved. So yes, final preseason game. Oof, that's all going on. Got to look back at the Seattle game. We'll go back to that too, because that's is a bit of it was an okay game, but it's the backstory after it that came in that's going to upset us, which we'll have to get into. We're going to have to talk about that. So we get into some of that, and then we'll look ahead as well, because next week, Tuesday, every single roster in the NFL goes from a 90-man to a 53-man roster. So there's going to be close to somewhat 1,300 players hitting the market all in one go. First time that's ever happened. It's going to be quite fun to watch. I mean, what do you think? I mean, before we get into, because we'll start from last week and then move forward, do you think there's going to be, or I'll put it this way, it's a nicer way. What player that's kind of like on the bubble, on the cusp, on the edge of the final 53, you hope makes it? Who's your guy?
I still am not sure what Cowboys are doing at running back. So obviously Pollard #1. A lot of good talk about Dowdle. Juice is just blowing people up on the on social media, and the 2 touchdowns so far. Yeah, I think that's fairly set. I don't know there's a piece missing there, and I think there's going to be a placeholder at running back for the Cowboys, and then just see what the market's like, see who's unexpectedly cut, who can Jerry jump on. I know he made comments today about Jonathan Taylor and saying he's comfortable with the room, but I don't know. I think there's something else there. So I think we'll see something on Tuesday. An odd name. That's nice that he's there. Maybe not running back, but somewhere else. And then actually they're just a sacrificial lamb, and then we put in someone because Jerry loves to steal the news.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the thing is that the initial 53, as I like to say, is not always going to be the team that's there. So, like, because there's a lot of jiggery pokery, there's a lot of players like, what are they going to do? So obviously, you're gonna, if you want to IR 2 players, they've got to be on the active 53. So say for instance, like Overshow, he's going to be on the 53. People are going to be like, oh, and you're cutting this guy, and it's like, well, wait, because most of these players, although they're cutting them and they want to clear them for waivers, they're like, just don't go anywhere, don't do anything, just wait there, we're coming back for you. It's just the process, and everyone loses their mind on the initial 50. I always say initial 53 is the funnest part of it all, because people are just losing their minds, and there's some players and you're just like, just wait, it's okay, they're not going anywhere.
And you're right, more this year with the even bigger cull on the bloodletting on Tuesday. You just have to, a lot of these younger players, you have to say, look, stay calm. We know what we're doing. Don't go running off and just take calls from people. Just calm.
And like, some of it is like, there's this little unwritten rule between all the GMs where, like, look, we just like these certain cuts, you don't go in and contact. It's just part of the deal, part of the process. So there is that. Although there are some that do break that rule, but we won't go there.
What about you? What do you think? He's just on the verge and actually could raise some eyebrows.
So I think a shock one, or not a shock one, like one that people, because he's there more as he's been there on special teams, is going to be Sean McEwen. I don't think he makes it this year, and then that's going to open the door up, because I think John Stephen Jr., who we'll talk about now, was on the cusp. He was on the edge. That's done. So that now solidifies Hunter Lipke's position. So he's making it in, which is going to make people happy. And he was a guy like I wrote about early in the season because of the West Coast offense and the Mike McCarthy system. The Cowboys needed that a fullback that can play all three roles, and that was why it was like, go on, get it, and he did, which was nice. So I think he makes it in, and that's the guy I hope that does, because he's going to be very helpful. More for his receiving skills, which people aren't really talking about that much. And for some reason, the camera's all the way over here, so I'm looking over here. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not changing my camera now.
It's like you're looking into me, so it works. It works. Maybe when we get 3, it'll be a bit different.
I should do that.
I'd do that, and people would see the size of my head, so I'll leave
it. But all right then. I mean, let's get into some of the news from the Seattle game last week. The big disappointing stuff. So first of all, let's start with the big one. DeMarvion Overshown, ACL injury, got rolled up on. It didn't look great. Was walking on it, which was good news, which kind of gave people some hope. But then all that hope was lost after the MRI. ACL gone for the year. To me, a lot of, I think the upset, and I don't know if you agree with this, is more that they wanted Overshown there because he was your safety net. Because you've got question marks with LVE. Damone Clark's got issues that he had from LSU, which amazingly he managed to play last year. I don't know how. And then you've got Jabril Cox, who's got the big durability question as well. So I think what it was is Overshown was just that sit, and now that's kind of like been pulled away. So now you've got a guy like Devin Harper, who also has durability question marks. He's now in the mix as well. So, because when you look at the Dan Quinn defense, it's essentially a nickel defense most of the time. So you've only ever got 2 linebackers on at once. So you've got Jabril Cox, who we will talk about as well, who's going to be in there. Devin Harper's going to get sprinkled in. And just more than anything, I think it was a case of you needed him there for the depth and for the safety position. Because, like, not the safety position, but as a safety player. Because I think it's more people are more sad about the fact that he's a rookie and that moment's gone from him and it's taken away. Now it's just like, great. I don't think it's more like, we haven't got a linebacker now, because LVE looking great. Clark's looking on fire. Cox is playing up to standard. It's just more the question mark with that. But when you seen the news, though, come in about the Overshown, how did it make you feel? Give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, gutted, and absolutely. I think the depth issue is something that is going to affect the Cowboys, because on paper, everyone's raving about the defense, and we've seen the last 2 years just how high tempo this can be. But we start to get a few knocks, few unfortunates, and then we can quickly sink back to mediocrity. And by Thanksgiving, when we actually need the stops, and maybe we need to keep the offense off the field, we just need to. I don't know. It's a weakness. Also, there's I don't know if you'd say the same. Hey, Paul.
Hello.
He's here.
I was hearing a few comments about Overshown, and he was speaking out, saying that he was picking up a lot from other players on the defense. So whether that was a deliberate attempt to be more to develop him as a leader as well. So we're losing a year of experience of him, but we might also be losing a year of him as a leadership role and starting to step up into LVE's big wolf hunter shoes. So that's it on both fronts.
Yeah. So Paul's in the room. It was looking. We had people jumping in and they had to leave. Craig very graciously has stepped in. This is his first show, Paul.
Hey.
First show.
Yeah,
it's a very busy one. It is jam-packed. Jam-packed show. There's a lot to go over. But you've been in Greece, Paul.
Can you tell?
Yeah. You got white tan lines now? Got white bits?
Nah, not really, man. I've been well, kind of say it on air, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Don't show us.
Are you saying you got more of a moon tan then?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good breakaway and stuff like that. I mean, day 5 was a wee bit scary because obviously with the fires that we were going about, and they started going across like about 100 miles away from where we are, and all you could see was smoke. Not that bit, so that was crazy.
That's gonna be fun.
But getting home there today, absolute nightmare. My transfer got cancelled. Then I had to pay an extra €130 to get from there to the airport. And when we were on the plane, we were delayed by 2 hours. Kept that standstill. Everyone was on the plane because there was too much airplanes up in the sky through Europe. So we were like,
trying to hide
when the hell? Yeah, when the hell am I actually going to get home? So I eventually got there. I'm back home. I'm now here to talk about Cowboys, and I've got a lot of catching up to do. So,
well, we just talked about Overshown, about that's the big miss. But we'll go to the next guy, and I'll get your thoughts, guys, on both of this. John Stevens Jr., kind of like a hybrid wide receiver tight end. I think he was going to be, by the way, the Cowboys were utilizing him, how he was lining up. He was going to be this sort of F-type tight end that we see a lot. These move tight ends. He's now gone. Lost for the season, ACL. I think he's definitely going to stick around. Big gut in that one. Opens the door though for all the other guys, because I think he was the lock for the last position spot. I think they were going to go deep on tight end, and he was going to be the extra tight end. But how do we feel about the loss of that?
To be perfectly honest with you, I really don't know. I mean, I only saw wee bits and bobs of John Stephen from training camp and from there, but I can't really put a full assessment on him. From what I saw so far, I thought the best he could probably make was obviously special teams, but he would definitely have been like a practice squad player.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So, yeah, it's a shame. But what's your thoughts, Craig, on John Stevens?
Yeah, similar. I hadn't picked up on my radar too much. It seems like a developmental prospect, and the staff and the ownership love that. But yeah, I think we're lucky that in that talent pool we're quite good. There's no big name, so it wouldn't that he'd be shoved out for someone like a Witten. Yeah, he had the opportunity to present himself as the year went on. The fact we've lost him for the whole year, it's not a game. It's not a heartbreaker like Overshown is.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Obviously, then tied in with that. Well, let's go out a shoulder injury. Came in last week, did a little bit. You could see obviously it was still bothering him. Sheldrick Redwine, he came away the game with an injury, and David Durden, wide receiver, who was massive in D2 on special teams as a kick returner. Like, he was leading the nation. He was absolutely tearing it up. But he's just found out today he's torn his ACL, so he's done. So that's another guy. But let's talk about the big news that came out this week. Me and Paul have had the pleasure of interviewing this guy, Mr. Sam Williams. Now, yeah. So this is an awkward one because obviously, first of all, we just want to say Sam Williams is fine. We don't think he's, in any sort of major. There's legal problems coming up, but I don't think he's going to like prison or anything like that. No. So there's a lot of weird law in Texas. We call it weird to those guys. It's normal. So there's a lot of twisted sort of gun law that goes in with what's happened. So it's turned out he was found with THC. So that could be in the form of like a vape or an edible, anything that you can think of. Most or some states it's legal. Texas is just like a full no. This is not happening here. So we've talked about, you've got to stick with the law of the land. You've got to be smart about these things. But how do we feel? Because I don't think he's going to get punished this season. I think it's going to be more of, you think like this is going to take a while for it to get through the courts before they dish out a punishment. From them, that's when the NFL will hand down the punishment. But how do we feel about this, guys? About the Sam Williams repercussions and issues here?
I mean,
personally,
Now you go, Paul.
I'm very disappointed, if I'm being perfectly honest, but having to speak to Sam Williams and how he even had Preston Pearson actually talking to someone else.
That's right.
Don't screw this up, because you only get one opportunity in the league. It's like, take every opportunity you can get. It's like, if you mess up, then that's it. And look what happened to David Irvin. Like, I'm taking that as a prime example. Like, don't get me wrong, he did go to like Las Vegas for a season, but other than that, like, he never became the player that he should have been. Like, but with Sam Williams though, it's like, this is a second-round draft pick. You should be holding yourself to accountable. You should be following the rules, like, even from the state that you're in, and also by the NFL policies as well, to ensure that you're actually being compliant, and therefore, like, see, when you retire, do whatever what the hell you want. But if you're there as a professional football player, you should not be doing this. There's reasons why that teams look at this and think, why would I want this guy in this team? I know that's a bit of an extreme say on that, but I'm really disappointed. I really am.
Yeah.
Emotional damage.
Very similar. I mean, the fact that it's not just this, but there was the issue with the speeding and the crash last year.
Yeah.
Do you start to pick up a bit of a reputation for yourself, even if it's completely undeserved? I mean, and that could affect them further down the line. So there's the initial impact on him. There's the impact on the team, which he was really flashing some great moments there, and could this year could be in his breakout year. But also the question to me is it a culture thing? Not trying to leap from this and make a mountain out of it, but the Cowboys defense is generally quite young. It's quite high, spirited, quite aggressive. Dan fosters that really well. But there aren't that many wise and old veterans in the room. Is this something that actually, could be nipped in the buds, and he could be taken under the wing, and actually just, written off as youthful exuberance, whatever it is. But I hope that it's not things start to escalate and then bubble up during the season and affect what could be a really historically good unit.
I was just about to just say, it's like, that's actually quite a fair point in regards to defense there, because when you look at the pass and stuff like that, like that, with all the incidents when it comes to imposition of a type of narcotic, seems to be more on the defensive side. But if there's one group of type of players you don't ever hear anything about, it's offensive linemen. They never seem to, they step by the rules and stuff like that. But I could be talking out of my backside here, but that's just how I'm kind of seeing it just now, like just in reflection what you just said there, Craig.
Yeah,
it is an awkward, and especially when you think that if the punishment, which is going to come, because this is the Cowboys and Roger Goodell gets to hand out the punishment. The issue is we're really looking next year when that's going to happen. And when that does, you think that we may not be without Dorrance Armstrong. DeMarcus Lawrence could be on the move, looking to retire. We don't know. Probably he's coming towards the end of things now. And then plus you think there's all the other pass rushers that we've had in that are on their final year. So then what could essentially happen with next season is we could be looking at all these pass guys could be moving on. And then Sam Williams, who's supposed to be the replacement for Tank, he's then stuck not playing for X amount of games for the start of the season. So it's going to make things awkward for next year, that's for sure.
I mean, the one parallel, just to jump on that, is Zeke. I know it was very different issues and so on, but he had the first amazing rookie year, and rightly so. And then the second year, as the Hard Knocks year, where it was a case of waiting to hear the legal thing, the NFL thing, the appeals, the back and forth. He would find out on Friday he's playing on Sunday, and he just never really recaptured himself after that. So I'd hate for something to happen to someone with such promise like Sam.
Yeah, that's
a great point.
Yeah, that's for definite. But I mean, let's look at that. Let's look at last week's game. Now, obviously, we've gone through the players that got injured. So let's just talk now about, in terms of the game, players. I want to start off with Eric Scott, because he's had a little bit of an up and down preseason, it was looking quite good. It was looking promising. Then things tailed off. This game completely encapsulated that. When you look at, he makes the interception in the end zone. He makes the pass breakup very early in the game, and you're thinking, okay, things are starting to click here. Now, in fairness, he was up against Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I think what we saw on that play is not the lack of skill, but the lack of experience. Because, like, you don't let a guy like Jackson Smith get inside leverage on you, and he gave it to him, and the end result was he almost scored a touchdown. Obviously, you've seen him make the score-saving tackle literally at the 1 yard line. But I think what you saw was just the lack of experience with him. How are you guys thinking in terms of Eric Scott so far and what you saw in the game?
So I actually didn't get the opportunity to see the game because I was even more times ahead, and I've been out on holidays. So, but I have seen some snippets, so I can only comment on that. Like,
yes.
But in terms of overall, I think Eric Scott Jr. has actually been quite the surprise. Like, there's a reason why. Like, he has been a reason why we did trade up for him. So it could be one of those ones where it could be one of those late round draft picks would end up being a really good one. Like, really does stand out. So I just hope it just keeps continuing progressing on and do what he's doing in camp and transition that more into the games and stuff like that. Then I think he'll be an absolute valuable asset to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, similar. I mean, I didn't catch much of the games, just the highlights because I was away as well. But Eric was one of those I had sort of scribbled at the bottom of the. It wasn't quite the draft day, you know. I've forgotten. Take whoever it is, no matter what. One of those. I kept scribbling on the bottom of my draft roster. And I was surprised that he was around so late for us to get. He's going back to what we're saying at the start. He'd probably be one I think would be right on the edge of the roster for the cut down to 53. And Paul, you're absolutely right. The experience there. He's got the enthusiasm. He's got the skills. It's just how much can he go against the top names? When they are fully up to speed. JSN's now off, just had surgery. But when if he was to face those number ones, those twos pushing for ones in the regular season, how much could a costly mistake or something like we saw there change a game and potentially change a season? So a real prospect, probably a little too rough a diamond at this stage to be a starter.
Yeah. And what is interesting, I know you guys didn't watch it, so I'll just make the references to it, and then we can move on to the Raiders game for this weekend. TJ Bass actually looked really good. I think he's now, with the way things are going with injuries and how thin things are on the offensive line, I think he's going to actually look to be a swing tackle, which is crazy to say. And it's scary because obviously he's a rookie and he's going to be playing that position. Awesome Richards, I mean, he was really good. One of the best players out there. But here's a surprise that actually shocked me from last week was Josh Ball. He actually played really well. So could be interesting that move on the inside is working.
I mean, even through camp, he's actually been one of the quiet ones. Like, no one's like, I always say this, like, especially when it comes to the offensive line, if no one's talking about you negatively, it's always a good thing. And Josh Ball has not really had much negative feedback or any feedback. No one's mentioned him saying, he needs to do better or anything like that. It's just kind of went on and kind of did his thing. So hopefully this could be, like you're saying there, mate, this could be like us doubting Josh Ball for all these couple of past seasons with his pass and whatever. He's actually turned over and actually really stepped up to the plate. So good on him.
Yeah, it definitely. And talking about guys stepping up as well, Paul, Jabril Cox has been looking good too. I mean, he's really stepped it up. And I think last year, you've got to give him the benefit of the doubt with the ACL injury, especially, you know, like the style of off-ball linebacker he plays. You've got to let that he might be medically fit to play, but he's not football ready to play, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No,
And
I think that's what it was.
I know a different injury, but personally, a lot of, I think, Dak's issues last year was he football ready to play? Could Burrow be football ready to play in a few weeks? But yeah, from what I've seen of Cox, he just seems sharper off the blocks this year, which could really confound some defenses.
Yeah, when you think of the type of offenses that, you know, this team's going to face next year, he could be, you know, that perfect catalyst to help drive things along. So it's going to be helpful if he can be the guy. Dowdle was absolutely on fire. I think he's locked in for the RB2 role. If you remember, Paul, we spoke to Broadus and Isaiah Stanback, and they were like, yeah, watch Dowdle. Dowdle is on. He's going to be the guy. And it turned out that that's absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think even like a Deuce Vaughn solidified himself as well, even as the RB3.
Yeah. I think, you know, if we talk about the free running backs, and I don't know what you guys think of this, I've got quite a different take. But the way I'm looking at it is Tony Pollard is our RB1. That's the RB1. Dowdle's the RB2. But Deuce Vaughn is the RBX. I'm not calling him the third down running back or the RB2. He's just this kind of like splinter off from Pollard. You know, like if he was to do it in like a ladder, so Dowdle's below Pollard, whereas like coming off from Dowdle is Deuce Vaughn. He's not below him, if you know what I mean. Not that they're equal, but just that they're very different types of running backs that you can use as weapons.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. And we've seen some of that already with the type of use that Vaughn has. It's not hierarchical. It's not, what's it called? Pollard takes 70%. Dowdle takes 20 and Juice cleans up whatever he can. They'll use him in unexpected packages, and if the O-line is rolling and able to dominate that line of scrimmage, then there could be little squeaky holes that actually this play be better to use Vaughn than to use Pollard. I don't think it is straight 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, definitely. So that was an interesting one. Obviously, I think we're pretty much sound on the fact that I don't think Dowdle's going to be playing next week. But also another player who I don't think is playing next week is our wide receiver 4, Mr. Jalen Tolbert.
I was going to say something about the running backs there. I've got a wee different, but before we talk about Jalen Tolbert, I do have a little different take. I know you're saying like RBX and stuff like that, but I've been saying this from the get-go based on how other teams have been utilizing running backs. I think this is going to be a pure running back by committee.
Yeah. I think it's that Pollard takes the lion's share, and then it's between everybody else.
Well, it might not be. It might not be though, Mike. Like it could be just. I don't think guaranteed. Like we're talking to Pollard with him being on the franchise tag and stuff like that. He's not got a new deal done yet, so we don't know how we're going to utilize him. Yeah. Like that could play a factor in terms of his game usage. If he plays well, then obviously he's going to expect more big bucks. If we don't play him as much, then obviously other teams are not likely to offer him more bigger contracts. There's so many different ways you can look at this. And also, like, it's just going to keep teams more guessing. If you put in Pollard for one drive and put like Vaughn in the other drive and Dowd on the other drive, it's just going to keep teams guessing. And you go, because who knows, it could be Dowdo on the first down. It could be Vaughn, depending on what the scenario is. So I really do think now it's really just like position-wise in terms of if you put it on paper, Pollard is RB1, Dowdo is RB2, and Vaughn's RB3. But on the field, they're just running backs. Different. They're just going to be running backs. It just depends how Mike McCarthy sees it fit, I think.
Yeah. Like what you're trying to accomplish.
And that bit about Mike McCarthy might be the key there. with him taking over the play calling duties, is this a case of he wants to show it's not what we did unsuccessfully last year, which is Zeke up the middle first down and get nowhere. He'll want to keep the ball, all shook up and defenses not knowing where we're coming.
Yeah, and there's a way to do it is keep them guessing, positionless football and all of that. Yeah, all the buzzwords, but keep them going. But yeah, Jalen Tolbert, I don't think we see him this weekend. He's solidified himself as the wide receiver 4. The only thing I will say is I'm just tempering slightly. Not that I'm not excited that Tolbert has come on, right? Love that fact. But when you think about how this team plays its formations with, their tight ends mostly, I just wonder, like, how often are we... Because, like, the Cowboys hardly ever run 4 wide receiver sets. So I think with Tolbert, it's great that he's there, but I think it's more that he's in when a player's fatigued or injured. I think that's the only thing.
Yeah,
like, it's good to be excited about it, but, like, how often are you going to see him play?
I think you'd be.
Yeah, he's definitely a depth option.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll be very surprised how much game time he will get, actually.
I don't know. Because, like, if he's playing, that means either one of our wide receivers aren't performing or they're injured. That's just how I think. So, that's just how I'm seeing it. I could be completely wrong, especially with this West Coast offense. You're trying to run Texas Coast, yeah. And you're trying to run, obviously, similar patterns from different formations. So you can mix it up with various players. But we'll see how that goes. We'll see how it works out. So let's get on to the final preseason game. This is the last game. We're really down to the bottom of the barrel plays here. I know that's a bad thing to say, but it's also a good thing, because what you're doing is you're trying to see what can you find in depth? What can you find in options that can fill certain spots that you're looking to try and fill, especially when it comes to special teams, because the Cowboys have really purged the special teams this year from top to bottom. So let's start, as we're saying this now, with special teams and talk about Mr. Brandon Aubrey. Now, we talked last week's game about how depressing that was. But one positive note is it was the first time Aubrey was 100% on his kicks last week. He was 2 for 2.
Yeah, and he didn't let the pressure fall to him so far. So it's a positive. I mean, it could be, who knows, Aubrey could be the one where we might just stick with rather than getting a veteran in. Who knows? He might break the barrier.
Yeah. I mean, go on, Craig.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely improving. And it seems like the coaching staff have some faith in him. That might be one of those that we see who unexpectedly comes available after Tuesday, and Aubrey could be moved out for a bigger name. There were, how many times do we go through this? But there were a couple of games that were a field goal away from being different, and then we've got the 1 seed, and then the whole postseason is different. Is Aubrey the difference maker? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we've got someone new kicking the first extra point on the first game.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, what are we after for Aubrey in this? Just to be 100% on his kicks and we'll feel confident, or do we want him? Do we want to see the team put him through the ringer in this game? Give him like some difficult 40-yard kicks.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I would
just purposely do it.
Like get it out the system. If he makes it, it gives him more confidence going forward. That's the way I would. That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, let's say he has 2 field goals and an extra point, and he's 3 for 3. Are we completely dissolved of looking for his replacement at that stage, and that's what we're going with into the season?
I think that will be on the back burner at some point. Because we've seen kickers get replaced halfway through the season from other teams before.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, they're a really mobile group in terms of plug and play. And if Jerry sees a way to steal the limelight, then yeah, he'll jump and pick up a big name, maybe someone towards the end of a career that's only ever been with one team.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be an interesting one. We're waiting.
I was going to suggest something absolutely stupid there. You'll bring back Adam Vinatieri out of retirement,
out of the nursing home.
Yeah. Literally, they'll be pushing him on a wheelchair towards the ball. It's just Dad.
I've literally just got the image of that as well. Oh,
so obviously, we were just talking about the running backs, right, guys? Saying how good Dowdle and Pollard is. I think at this stage, they're completely done for the season. I would even go as far to say, I'm not playing Vaughan this week. We know who he is. We know what he is. We know what he's capable of. Let's just wrap him up in bubble wrap as well for the weekend. So that means that running backs, I mean, they could play Ronald Jones because, legally he's allowed to play in this game. But it's really Malik Davis and Hunter Lipke that are going to be doing this. I think personally, Malik Davis, they kind of like are going to keep around. They want to kick around. But I think this is going to be a big game for Lipke. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he's capable of. Let's give him some snaps, give him some carries, give him some catches. How are we feeling about the running back core with these two playing, taking snaps from the backfield in this game? What are we expecting? What do you want to look for?
I want to see Lipke actually do more actual fullback stuff like what Keith Smith did in the past. We know how good he can be attacking-wise when he's playing for North Dakota State. Yeah. So I just want to see that a little bit of versatility from him, like in terms of him doing his blocking and stuff like that. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind, like, we will probably end up having Lipke in the roster as that valuable option, especially when it comes to the West Coast offense or Texas Coast. Yeah, sorry. Where it comes to Malik Davis, he just needs to do what he needs to do. Really, like I think the best option for him right now, as of how Dowdle and Vaughn have played right now, is probably making the practice squad now. I think. Yeah. And I know it sucks to say because he actually made some really good plays when he was on the team last year. So it's hard to say. It's sad to say, but I think we just need to kind of be a bit realistic here. I think it's going to be, if he just keeps doing what he's doing, like I think he will. But when it comes to Ronald Jones, though, I don't see the point in this, to be honest.
Well, here's my theory, is that you've got him on a 2-match suspension. So he starts on the suspended list, which means you don't have to do anything. He doesn't count towards your 53. He only counts when he comes back. So if anything, suspensions actually helped him a little bit, because what you can do is the first 2 games, keep him in this sort of holding area. This is answering Rich Gillett's question about where does Ronald Jones land. So you keep him there. If your running backs in the first 2 games, any of them become injured or they're not playing the way that you want them to, or they're letting the pressure get to them, you've got a veteran who's he's been on Super Bowl winning teams. So keep him around, and then you'll have to figure out what you're doing with the 53 from there. That's what I would do, because there's no point in releasing him when he can be there as a placeholder for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's about maybe even a mentor in the room, because, again, very young cohort. Someone just to, settle players down into this new scheme, into this new experience. And then if he works, find a place for him. If not, thanks. But, you are our insurance package. So I agree about the he helps to cover for a little while. And maybe with, as Paul was saying with Lepke, that if we can just scheme up with the loss of Zeke, some good protection packages for Dak in Zeke's absence, then actually Lepke might be more useful as a final line of defense than anything else.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to go for this one. What is also interesting is I want to know what they're going to do with the wide receiver core this weekend, because obviously your big 3 aren't starting. Jalen Tolbert, let's get him covered and wrapped up in bubble wrap. He's got nothing more to prove. So I think Simi Fehoko needs to get involved, show that he can make these catches. I'm going to definitely throw him out there because if we can't, he's not with it. What it is with Simi Fehoko, his heart is in the game. You can see it. He really does want to be a Dallas Cowboy. The issue is he provides you nothing on special teams, and since he's joined the Cowboys, he's provided nothing in terms of receptions. He has, but very little. What do we do here, right? And I'll ask you both, and as well at home, Simi Fehoko, play him a lot in this game. If he fails, cut him, or do we still kick him around and see what we can get?
I think, well, I'm going to kind of slightly answer your question, but I'm not. I think the problem, I think the problem Simi Fehoko has right now is Jalen Brooks
tapping at his heels.
Big time. Yep, because if Jalen Brooks makes some really good catches in that, I think that exactly, DJ Dog. Fehoko versus Brooks for the Wasp spot. I think that's what it really does come down to, really. Like Brooks, in my eyes, he's definitely made the practice squad. In my eyes, at least. It's up to like if Brooks was to outshone Fehoko in any way, shape, or form, I think he's got that spot. But for Fehoko, he needs to go out there guns blazing and really stamp his support. Yeah, it's the drops. Yeah, you're right.
It just doesn't seem to be able to shake it. And like, you think Turpin solidified his role. So I think they take 6 wide receivers, right? But obviously 5 of them are going to be pure wide receivers with Turpin as this kind of in-between guy. So it is really, what do you do with this 5th or 6th wide receiver spot? It's a very, very tricky one. I mean, beyond that, the other wide receivers, I mean, is there anybody that tickles your fancy, if you like, Craig, that you would like to see on the wide receiver core this weekend?
No, and I mean we've covered about who we want to protect, and I agree it is pretty much Simi's last chance, and unless he really draws attention this weekend, probably just sort of fade away as a nice try.
Yeah. The other 2 Jalen's, I think, is what it's boiling down to here. So, you know, your Jalen Brooks and your Jalen Moreno Cropper are the guys that you're looking at.
Yeah. I don't think that. I think now enough has been locked in that you'd have to do something extraordinary to change their dynamic. And as Paul was saying, you know, the drops, he's marked with those now, which is a shame.
Yes. So, I mean, the wide receiver core will be quite interesting. Offensive line as well, I think, is going to be a big one. What is interesting, though, that I've heard on the grapevine that I'm sure you're going to like, Paul, because I know you love offensive line talk.
Oh, yeah.
I think Zach Martin's going in this week because they want to get him.
He needs to.
Yeah, they need to get him working.
It just, like, even if it's for one series, that, like, he just needs some game awareness.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's what they're going for.
Like, just get him in for one series and that's it. And after that, just it should fall under the right place in that. Like, but for the other guys, though, yeah, I think it's all to play for, really.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I'd like to see Cropper come in because of what he can provide as a slot receiver. Because when you look at all the wide receivers,
I like Moreno Cropper. I really did like him. I loved the fact that we got him.
Yeah,
because when you look back, like, he was one of the guys we talked about during the whole draft process. Like, it's like we could probably get him maybe the 6th or 7th or something like that. And did we get him undrafted?
Yeah, he was a UDFA.
Like, so we got him as a undrafted free agent. So, and we're like, oh, let's go. That's actually bringing some good competition to the wide receiver. And we're actually clearly showing that when you've got like Brooks, Cropper, like you're seeing Tolbert rising back up again. So the wide receiver competition's been immense this year.
Yeah, it has worked. Yeah. And
it's worked amazingly.
What is interesting with Cropper as well that I like is he's a pure slot receiver. And when you look at the wide receiver crop that we've got, sure, they can play the slot, but there's not one that's like a specialist in the role. The only one that is CD Lamb. And you think, so what happens if... Okay.
I think what was supposed to appear was flags, USA flag, Great Britain flag, and the Ireland flag, I believe.
That might make sense.
Mm-hmm. I find the emotes did not show up in that comment there, so apologies. Landlord
I'll
from
go
Wakanda.
Yeah, I'll try and check it now because you're probably right. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's USA, UK, and Ireland. You bang on. Well done, mate.
Hey, that's what I do for a living. I work on the
He's got like Matrix vision. He only sees in ones and zeros.
It's actually true, actually.
Well, that's actually something I need to talk to you about, actually, but that's a conversation for later. But yeah, offensive line is going to be quite interesting. How do they hold up? We're looking at depth here. You know, DJ Dog made a comment about Bass. You know, yeah, it's all these guys. Want to see how these down roster guys, because we're going to need them. We're going to need their help. What is also interesting, I think, is really, because he had a terrible game last week, was Will Greer. Like, we've got this whole rule on the quarterback 3 position, but is it worth holding on to if he's not playing up to start? Because we've seen it for the first week, you kind of go, okay, you've got some rust, we'll give you the allowance. The second week, you're kind of like, this is bad.
I'm going to throw a wild card there. Trade him back for Ben DiNucci.
Oh, yeah.
I miss the Nooch.
Bring him back to Dallas.
Yeah. And that way we can have a drink with him on Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and saying that, speaking about it's Meg's birthday today.
Oh yes, it is, and it's Brandon's as well. Brandon Laurie.
Ah,
yeah, they share a birthday, like. But bringing back to this, happy birthday to these folks.
Bring back the niche, yeah.
Yeah. Let's also talk about a guy who we really need to see, kind of like step things up. Is Mazi Smith. I'm not panicking. I'm not in panic mode. People are making already comments and referencing Taco Charlton and going, oh, is this all over again? It's like, calm down. It's preseason. Like, playing nose tackle, some people seem to think playing nose tackle really is that simple. It's not simple.
I've played the position. It's not simple at all.
It's not. Like, you know, there are complexities to it that, you know, and there's also not just the complexities of the movement skills that you need to have. There's also techniques, and that's what Mazi Smith is missing. You notice it. So, like, you know, like he's trying to drive a player on one leg. And, you know, like when you see certain players lunging forward on him and getting, you know, like a reach block on him, he doesn't know how to disengage. And it's because while he was at Michigan, he was able to just overpower these sort of problems. Now he's playing against guys that know how to take the correct angles at you. They know how to shift and manipulate their bodies and how to use their hands. And Mazi Smith is now going to have to move forward and learn these new techniques. But the good thing is that it's a blank canvas for him. So he's learning this week by week. And then I think what's going to happen is once the two collide, so he's already got the power and the strength, but once he gets the technique, once the two come together, that's when we're going to see the Mazi Smith we were all expecting. But we've said it before, Paul, and I'll ask you this as well, Craig. We've said this many, many times. Offense and defensive linemen, you really do have to give them the time to sort of digest it all in. Like we always say, 3 years for these guys. Third year, that's the type of guy you're going to get. Look at Osa Odigizua. First year, not bad. Last year, pretty good. This year, he's going to look even better again. You've got to give him time. There's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't a Muzzy fan when they made the pick. I'm still not persuaded yet. But you're right. It's preseason.
Preseason is not a time to panic.
Yeah, I heard a good analysis from one of the morning shows yesterday that said Mazi Smith was brought in to stop the Eagles' quarterback sneak. and just the shunt on the fourth down. That's not something people are trying in preseason. That's fine. But if the one player, maybe not this year, maybe later in the year, maybe into next year, can just solidify that front angle and stop the momentum of an Eagles type fourth down, then that gives us that'd be worth a first down pick.
Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the Eagles' fourth down QB sneak now stopped? Is that not allowed anymore?
No, there was a lot of talk about it being unsportsmanlike. Okay, so they were going to try and
it was literally a bloody cheat code for a way. And sorry, I'm going to go off topic, but how can anyone consider Jalen Hurts to be a great QB when he's relying on that for all of his touchdowns? I'm sorry, Eagles fans, you can go and blow yourself for that statement. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. It overinflated the Eagles for they did a cheat code, and the risk is that other teams will try it with a less capable front, and you'll just get QB injuries.
The only teams I can really see really pulling it off is Buffalo and possibly Baltimore.
You need those big, heavy guys in the middle to be able to get a lot of push.
Yeah.
If they can. And the Eagles do. You look at that offensive line, they can get push.
It's certainly not going to be the New York Giants, that's for sure. Danny Dimes will probably end up getting concussed like Mark Sanchez did.
You never know. But I would absolutely say, here's one now, quietly panicking. Do not. Yes, that first step, again, that's going back to technique. It's understanding how to read the snap and when it's coming and anticipation. I mean, the good thing is you would rather him be a step late than be a step early and call a flag, is my argument to that. So I would just let things go. Here's one that I'm definitely saying no to. Would you play Dak for a series? Nope. He's completely done.
It's not worth the streets for the cheese.
No, definitely. I mean, you think it is a meaningless game, and some people say, well, it's not meaningless because you need them to, like the quarterback to chip the ice off the shoulder, to get into a groove. They'll work the rust off in the first game. So don't worry about that. And people say, oh, you can't lose. Do you want to lose against the Giants in the first week? If they're 0-1, it's not the end of the world. They're not going to. How many times have the Cowboys gone 0-1 and we've made it to the playoffs? Many times.
The middle of our season is really, really beneficial. It works for us. So
it's a flexible mid part. Yeah.
And similarly, I mean it's not. It's not a meaningless game, you're right, but Dak's been in long enough and he's far enough away from the injury now that he doesn't need to brush the rust off. We've done enough in training camp. Let's just get ready for week 1.
Yeah. And there was this one as well, taking old Travis Frederick's number 72, Taylor Priolu. He could be a rotational player. He might make it. I don't think so, though. He's going to have to come in and prove it. He can't. He blocks well. He's coming into this second year. He's looking to try and rejuvenate things. See what he does. I mean, at this stage, it's hard to say. But if anything, he could possibly come in. When you think what's happened with Waletsko, there's so many. It's hard to know what they're going to do with the depth. Like the starting 5 for the offensive line for Dallas, that's easy. We know this, and we know how good it is as well. I think the issue is the depth, especially when you think Terrence Steele, how's he going to come back off the injury? Tyron Smith is just a tick away. Every snap we're holding our breath. So, yeah, that's the issue there. I did see there's loads of them coming in. You're flying in. Thank you very much, guys, as well for the comments and the questions. They are absolutely flying. We can't keep up, but we will try. We will try. But we were talking at the start about obviously with the issues that we've got with Overshown going out, issues at linebacker. What about Isaiah Land then, guys? Let us know how you feel about him as well at home, guys. I mean, this guy, led the nation last year by a lot too in tackles for loss. I mean, this guy is just a machine. He's looked a little bit better every week, and now with what's happening, it opens the door where he's more of a pass rusher that you just want to wind up and let go. But I think he's somebody who you could have, to be quite helpful in that type of role. Are we watching him specifically this week, or are we just going to roll with what we've got, guys?
I again not fully versed in him, but from the little I've seen, he is a mini Micah in that he'll just be able to just blow people off, nowhere near the level he is. But actually, this could be an opportunity for Micah to be taking a bit of a leadership role, and God forbid anything does happen to him, Isaiah's an interim. So yeah, I think he's one for the future. But actually, we might be surprised by it.
Yeah, Paul, do you want to talk about him?
Yeah, I just expect to see Lange to really kind of just continue going on from what he's been doing so far. But yeah, I mean, like kind of Craig said, I haven't really seen too much of him, but I just want to, if he can just show something a bit different. But yeah, like you're saying, like in terms of back in college and stuff like what he's been able to do and stuff like that, if he can bring that across to, if he can bring that same intensity across to the pros, then great.
Yeah, here's a good one though, right? And it's talking specifically about Rich Giller is on fire at the moment. Here's one specifically about the defensive line, Paul. So I've answered this question before. How many nose tackles do we carry with Mazi Smith and the technique upgrading? Now I think Hankins you keep around because he is extremely helpful, right? He's a veteran and he's going to be helpful. What happens beyond this year, I don't know. Now Quentin Bahana has come on loads. Yeah, so here's the thing. Yeah, I think you carry Hankins, Bohana, and Mazi, all three, as one tax.
Oh, it's one tax. Oh, okay.
You say nose tackles. He's included Gallimore in this, which I think is kind of wrong. You're going to have to move him back into
Gallimore is more of a free tech, I would say.
Yeah.
But even...
Osa is too.
No, but if you're talking about as a group of defensive tackles, it doesn't necessarily have to be nose tackles. So, because a free tech and a one tech is considered as D tackles. But if you're being very specific in terms of a nose tackle, then it's either the 0 or the 1. So, in terms of if we're just talking about purely defensive tackles, out of those names, as much as it pains me to say, Gallimore's out of there.
He's the one who's done the least, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. And I hate to say it because I am a big Neville Gallimore fan.
This is true. I very much remember that sleep-deprived evening with you.
Yep.
With Stashed Man and all of
that. That's right. But in terms of just if it's just like you said, Gallimore and Osa are not purely nose tackles. They're more like
it's the three
tech, yeah.
And more specifically, they're there to try and create an inside pass rush.
Yeah, if you were to kind of put it out of Bohana, Smith, Hankins, you would keep the free. You would need the free anyway for rotation.
Yeah,
yeah, and I think that's where you go.
And that's why I was another worry about taking Muzzy so high is that because he's a first-round pick, you want to be using him more than perhaps he's ready to. If we picked him up sort of early, I know there were other teams potentially lurking, but if we picked him up early second, it might have just given us more time to embed him in.
Yeah, you just have to, like a lot of people, and the trouble is that the type of position Mazi Smith is playing is not very flashy. He's not going to be getting sacks. What he's there for is the two-gap technique in the middle that's just there to anchor it down and create a stopping point to make running backs move and second guess themselves. Yeah. That's really what. So it's going to frustrate people when they see it, because obviously what we can't forget as well is we've still got to talk. We've got to think about guys like Chauncey Golston, who hasn't been bad. He hasn't been great. He hasn't been bad. And we've still got Isaac Alarcon.
I will say this about Isaac Alarcon, right? He might not be like, he might not make the roster, but he's definitely going to be the practice squad. The reason why I will say that is because, like, he can play both sides of the ball when it comes to scout.
Yeah.
Like, so when it comes to game preparation, week by week, he can jump on the offensive line. So therefore, like, the starters can actually take a back seat and let the defense work on Isaac, and also Isaac can work on the O-line.
The other way around, yeah.
The other way around. So he's, for if anything, Isaac is getting more development time as a player for this season alone.
Yeah.
Wait till the following season. You're going to see big leap bounds from Isaac, I reckon.
And Dan Quinn has talked about him, saying that he's coming on great. Like the physicality is there and the understanding. So that's quite interesting that he mentioned that. The other guy, though, who I thought we'd talk about. Now, we'll talk about defensive backs in a minute, but specifically, we'll talk about the development and how much better Kelvin Joseph has looked the last couple of weeks. He's actually coming along. But more specifically, what I like with this is that, and it almost seems now, it seems obvious when you think of the style of play that he is, that physical press man right in your face, you know, very strong, close down to his receiver, closest man, that they put him at slot cornerback, and he just looked perfect at it. Not perfect, but he was really, really good at it. And you kind of like, it all makes sense. Like, why weren't we doing this before? I think he could be, I don't think he's overtaken Deron Bland, but I think he's cornerback 4 currently.
Really?
Yeah. He's been that good.
I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. I can't really comment on it.
Yeah, he's probably one of those just lurking on the edge, like we first discussed. If he makes it into the squad, I wouldn't be surprised. If he's left out, I wouldn't be surprised. Jerry Jones was pretty stark in what he said, you know, about he needs to grow up last season. So I don't know. I think there's more to him than we probably see yet. But I don't know if it's enough.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like, we spoke at the start of the show about Eric Scott. He's still somebody who's, you know, chipping away there. Nashon Wright, you know, the injury kind of slowed things down there. You know, Israel Mukwamu, do we play him? Or do we kind of, like, look towards more of, like, Marquise Bell?
Marquise Bell.
Want to go down that road and leave Israel Mukwamu wrapped in bubble wrap?
Yep.
Especially when we think Donovan Wilson. We don't know what's going on there completely for week 1.
Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Give Bell more opportunity. Just gives Dan Quinn more options to play with.
Yeah. I think that's going to be what they're going to have to do. But here we go then, right? Let's do this, and then we'll get out of the show, right? 53-man roster, right? It all has to get cut down. So Tuesday is the initial 53. 4 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. Could be right, could be wrong. I don't know. It's like 10 o'clock in the evening, yeah? There's many time zones and days changing, yeah? So, is there anybody, right, Paul? And I asked Craig at the start of the show, anybody who you think, or no, let's start with this first. A guy who you really like, you hope makes the 53. I gave mine. Jalen Brooks.
Yep.
Interesting. Elaborate.
I just love the different dynamics he's bringing to the wide receiver core. Like, he's showing differently. He's showing in camp and he's showing in games what different type of angle passes. Either it's the deep throw, or it's the slant routes, or it's the I can't even remember all the route names because I'm not a wide receiver, but you know what I mean. But he's showing different aspects to his game, and his ability to catch the ball is actually really impressive. So for that set alone, I hope he does make the roster.
Okay, all right. And just to answer this, Jordan Lewis will start the season on PUP. So you're looking like end of October because they can bring him on PUP, plus you can have the 2 weeks of like training time to bring them back in. So you're looking like end of October, Rich, for when Jordan Lewis is eligible to come back. At this stage, they can cut him, which saves like $5 million on the cap. Or they can just have him stick around on PUP and see how things go. So there's like a little bit of roster play that you've got, a bit of roster manipulation. So they could just straight out cut him if there's somebody that they want to bring in and they need the cap space, which they don't. But if they do, they could do that. Or if not, they can just keep him on PUP, get to the end of October, and then he can come back in if they really wanted to.
I'm just going to mention this, right? I don't know if anyone's ever noticed this, but
Yes,
I'm just on, I'm just on the DallasCowboys.com's depth chart as of right now. There only is 4 defensive tackles listed: Hankins, Smith, Osa, and Bohanna. There's no Neville Gallimore anywhere in this depth chart.
I don't think it means anything there, though.
So I'm on the.
It's an unofficial depth chart, isn't it, that they're playing with?
Yeah,
but you would still think he's been in training camp this whole time. You would think his name's been listed, like,
and he's been there for multiple years.
Yeah, he's on the ESPN one, which I also got up here.
But again, Mike, when you look at the offense, Deuce Vaughn's name is there, Hunter Lupke's there. Like, it is being updated.
I don't know.
It's just something.
I know what you're saying.
Anyway,
we're going to turn the conspiracy screws on now. But all right, who do you think though? Right, so that's you said Jalen. Who was your guy, Craig? I forget who you said you hope makes it. Who's your guy?
I can't remember. I've been convinced during this chat. Chauncey Golston. He's just one that I think people overlook, and he's got a really high work rate,
versatility.
Yeah. So if this is a year which really makes his statement, I wouldn't be surprised. You haven't heard much of him in camp, but I think there's still a chance to make a difference.
All right, here's going to be a more tougher one. I don't know if you guys will be able to do it. I mean, I'll try to answer it to give you guys time. But who do you think might be a surprise cut? Do any of you want to go for that?
A surprise cut?
Yeah, I could go for one if you want to give you guys time.
I think I may actually have one, actually.
Go on, then. It might be the same as mine.
Javante Turpin?
Oh, nah.
When you think about it, Deuce Vaughn can play the special team role.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Turpin.
Yeah, that's what I'm just going for.
I'm going to start calling him. Oh my God, Turnip.
Turnip sounds good.
Oh,
I don't think he does. I think he's solidified himself too much as a return man. They've given him a number of looks in camp, and they've used him even as from the backfield. So they're really trying to find ways to use him.
Who knows?
I know. There's the fumble.
You did say surprise, like the biggest surprise. You did say that was the question.
I did say biggest surprise. I did say that would be a big surprise. I can go for one if you need time.
I think I'm not. I think earlier on I was talking about the running back room, but actually tight end. I think the idea that the Cowboys have locked in the tight end trio, I'm not certain on. I mean, Ferguson's definitely a number one, if not as good as Schultz was. But I don't know, Hendershot, and I don't know.
That would be cheeky. That would be a big shot. I think since John Stephen Jr. got injured, that's pretty much saved Hendershot. Because you could argue, you could have been like, this could go either way. right, let's make this week the deciding factor here. Let's put both tight ends on the field and see which one comes out on top. But I think since he's gone injured, the Hendershot's a little more safer now. McEwen is more of a guy there, I think. But I think my shot one will be Will Greer.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's a shot. Well, maybe, because we talked about him. There's a couple of guys in there on the wide receiver core. Your Dennis Houstons and your Simi Fahokos that were there last year. They could be some sneaky guys that get the shove. But the biggest one, I think, that would be not a big shock, but people will be like, whoa, if they really needed to make room on the defensive line and they're trying to figure out a way to move things around and they can't do it, Neville Gallimore. Oh, here we go. We got a few, yeah. Sean McEwen, yeah. Dante Fowler. That would be a trade. So I see where DJ Dogg's going, yeah, is that the Cowboys have a plethora of pass rushers. Like the one thing the Cowboys have a lot of right now is pass rushers. So why not, while we've got a lot of them, I don't know, possibly you could use Dante Fowler as trade bait. But because, Fowler's been really, really good so far this year. Like, he's moved on from what he was last year. But you could effectively, if you think about it, Sam Williams, Dorrance Armstrong, you've got a lot of pass rushes you can play with in there. You've still got Parsons doing his thing. So, you can use something for trade and move on. Fowler could be, but I don't see it. So yes, so there we go. But we'll do a roster because the initial 53 will be out Tuesday. We'll get to see that. By then, they would have done all their little mechanics of moving players around and jostling around. So by next Thursday, it'll be more solidified. We'll know exactly what the player rosters are. We can talk a little bit more in depth about that. So that'll be a bit more fun to do rather than trying to predict it. This time of year, the internet's completely saturated with 53-man roster projections. It's like mock drafts just before the draft. It gets you're just like, oh my god, these are everywhere. By the point you get to the draft, like literally every player is being drafted to every team. Which is what it's like now. A 53-man roster. Every player has made the roster so far. But yes, but we will be back next Thursday. But before we do, and I'm not going to lay this on Craig, we'll give him a break. We get past this time, but hit me with it, Paul.
Yeah, guys, if you're planning on to the Dallas Cowboys, I can't even say it. Just install Holiday Blues.
Yeah,
if you're planning on to a Dallas Cowboys game this year, be sure to go and check out cowboysexperience.com for meet and greets, game tickets, stadium tours, and much, much more.
That's right. And hit me with this, and then we can get out of here.
And yeah, guys, as you know, we do have our 2023 travel package. Myself, Craig, Mike, all the other guys in the UK Cowboys fan group are all planning on this year, which the game will be for Thanksgiving against the Washington, whatever they're called. So, yes, if you want to get more information, details, then be sure to either contact us or contact Cowboys Experience as they are providing the package.
That is right. So, as I say, we will be back next Thursday, talk about the 53-man roster. Then we can start getting into talk of week 1, which won't be the following weekend. It'll be the weekend after. So we've still got plenty to talk about, lots of things to do. Never know, we might have a kicker as well by then. But yes, as I say every week, make sure you stay safe over the weekend. Take care of yourselves. But when we finish the show, we always finish with these guys. We'll get out of here.
Dallas forever, Philly forever.
Go on, Craig. Give us a final word.
Back to the Super Bowl this year.